guys, welcome back to the 2025 Muskogee Creek Nation National Council Seat B runoff election live stream. If you're new to our live streams, oh, by the way, I'm your host, Jared Moore. If you're new to our election live streams, the results to the election are going to be coming in to the Muskogee Creek Nation Election Board's Facebook page. There's a link to that page in the description of this video if you just want to go there. Basically, what we're going to be doing tonight is I'm going to be chatting with the chat while we wait and refresh that Facebook page until those results get put in. Shouldn't take too long because there's only 2 races tonight. And on tonight's ballot, we have National Council Seat B, Mulgee District, Nelson Scott Harjo versus William Dean Lowe. And National Council Seat B, Tulsa District, Leonard Ray Gouge versus Lucian Allen Tiger III. So you guys still have time to make it to your local polling spot and vote. Polls close at 7 p.m. and then we'll just be waiting on those results to come in. If you guys have a preference about how we do tonight, there are 2 options. I've got a laundry list of 4 or 5 things to talk about while we wait on the results to come in. Or I have the entire ceremony that occurred at the Council Oak Park over this previous weekend, where the city of Tulsa gave the Council Oak Park land and the tree back to the Muskogee Nation, if you guys wanted to watch that ceremony. So if you have a preference, pop it into the chat. Just say Council Oak if you want to watch the Council Oak, or if you want to chat about these topics. There are going to be links to all the stuff that I'm talking about in the description of this video too, so you can click those and follow along. And until we have some votes in the chat, I'm just going to barrel ahead here. So the first thing is, you guys may have seen in the local news, oh, here's Tulsa Town has a question. How come we didn't do district voting? When will that be in place? Okay, so that is on my 3rd thing on my list of stuff to talk about, but we can go ahead and jump ahead and talk about that. So, district voting. First, let's go to the MCN election board's page on their website. I'm going to pop this up and you guys can follow along with me. So this is the election board's website, or it's the Creek Nation's website, but this is the election board section, right? And normally on here, you'll see here, 2025 runoff election sample ballot. Now they have taken down the sample ballot for the general election where we all voted on district voting. But luckily, I saved a copy of it. And this is coming from our drive. Again, there is a link in the description of this video to the sample ballot if you want to take it out, take a look at it. Now, why is this important? Well, I wanted to point out something here in the language that we voted on. So this is what the language that's here is what we passed and what is going to be amended into the Constitution, right? Now, remember, hold on a second. Now remember, guys, there's 2 levels to the laws at Creek Nation. There's Constitution, and then there's the Code. And the Code is below the Constitution. So when we voted on this amendment to the Constitution, it's above the Code, okay? Sorry, just wanted to clarify that. Let me bring this back up. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you guys can see. Can I move this up? Yes, there we go. Oh, and this can move away. We don't need that. Okay. Make it a little bit bigger. So where am I at? Here we go. So this is what we voted on, guys. This is what we voted for. Section 2 here, right? It says, A, each representative shall be elected by a vote of his/her respective district and shall hold office for 4 years, beginning with the first primary election after this article is effective. There is an election for 1 council representative from each district. These 8 seats shall be designated Seat A. The second primary election after this article is effective is to be an election for one council representative from each district. These 8 seats shall be designated seat B. Okay, so what's the problem there? Well, as we mentioned earlier in the previous general election live stream, the language for the code for elections got changed at the start of the year. And one of the things that they changed when they updated the election code is they removed the term primary. So now our elections are referred to as a general and then a runoff. So that's the problem with when this is going to take effect, is we don't know when the next primary is going to be, because currently we don't have election code that has the word primary in it, right? And I'll show you that. Let me go back here. You can see here, where was that? We looked at that last time. Maybe it was here. No, not there. In the general election live stream, we went and looked and showed where the primary language got removed. But we can also go here, Title 19 elections. This is what got updated, but you can see here, there's election. Oh, maybe you guys can't see. Let me zoom in here. Let me pop it up. I didn't have that up. So you can see here we have elections, runoff elections, substitute candidates. And if you go through and read all of this, and this is on the election board's, Creek Nation's election board section on their website, there nowhere in here does it designate a primary election. So how did this happen? Okay. So the amendments to the code happened, I think, in January or February of this year. It might have been March. And the language for the amendment to the Constitution, right, that bill was proposed before the amendment to the code happened. So they passed that bill for us to vote on the amendment, and then later they changed the code and they took the primary out. So there's a simple solution to this. The National Council will need to go back in and add primary to the code somehow through legislation, or worst case scenario, we might have to do another amendment to the Constitution. But I think it would be easier if we went back and they changed runoff back to primary. I don't know what's going to happen, and I haven't seen anything on that. I did ask the election board for clarification, and what I asked them specifically is, and I did this because I had several citizens contact me personally and say, hey, when does this district voting take effect? So I sent an email to Nelson Harjo at the election board manager, and I asked him, when specifically does this take effect? I never got a response. So I don't know if they're working with the council to try to figure it, or what's the situation there. But that's the issue with the amendment. And I would love to tell you when this is going to take place, but I don't know. It can't take place in today's election, because today's election is not a primary election. It's technically a runoff election. And so I don't know. And guys, I should remind you, because I say this in all of my lawyered up streams, I'm not a lawyer. So it's not legal advice or whatever. It's just my interpretation as an average Joe citizen, just like most of you guys. Okay, so where were we? Oh, so going back to my list. Let's see here. ML is posting NCA 107 along with Muskogee authorizing appropriation for election board to conduct special. Yes, that is in relation to term limits and some other changes to the Constitution there, ML, though. And I'm going to get to that. That's also on my list, but it's a little bit further down. But we're going to go through that too, so just bear with us. If you guys weren't able to see it today, there was a development in the MCN versus Steve Kunzweiler case. Steve Kunzweiler is the Tulsa district attorney, and they had filed for an injunction against him for him to stop prosecuting any Native American citizens on the reservation. And the judge in that case did not grant the injunction and issued a decision in the case. There's a link to it in the description here if you guys want to read it. And if you guys want to go into detail on this, we can read through it and everything. But basically, in a nutshell, what the judge said is that McGirt only applies to the Major Crimes Act, crimes designated by the Major Crimes Act, right? And for any crimes not designated by the Major Crimes Act, Creek Nation only has jurisdiction over Creek Nation citizens on the reservation, and the state has jurisdiction on all the other Indians on the reservation. And the justification for that is because, well, let me read the phrasing here. It's political. Let me go down a little bit here. Yeah, here we go. This is what I want. Let me bring this up really quick. So the state has jurisdiction over non-Creek citizens, tribal citizens on the reservation, and unless it would unlawfully, you see here, state jurisdiction may be preempted by federal law under ordinary principles of federal preemption, or when the exercise of state jurisdiction would unlawfully infringe on tribal self-government. So what the judge is saying here is he's saying, we're not going to stop Steve Kuntzweiler from prosecuting, for instance, Cherokee citizens in Tulsa, because Cherokee citizens don't have anything to do with the tribal self-government of the Creek Nation, right? That's the explanation they're giving. So that's where that is. ML's asking, did the missing word cost us $300? No, ML, what you're citing there is for a different issue that I'm going to talk about later. The amendment, the vote on the amendment for district voting has happened. It's done. I would be surprised if we vote on that again, but we'll see what happens. I might as well just jump ahead. You guys, if you want to read that decision or that order, it's a link in the description. You can go into that. And if you later on want me to go into that, I can go into that. But let me talk, ML's posting in here, so let me talk about that a little bit. So let's go to the National Council's website. So let's go through this saga, because this is a bit of a saga. You guys that tuned in to our candidate live streams, right? Our Meet the Candidate live streams. You may have seen that several candidates were asked about would they support an amendment to the Constitution for term limits, right? To limit the number of terms that councilmen can have. And those candidates were saying yes, yes, yes. Well, Thomasine Yohola Osborne, she brought legislation to do term limits, and that happened in September 27th's regular session. So what I'm doing here is, let me bring this up for you guys. What I'm looking at here is the agenda. It's on the National Council's website. These are the agendas for this year. And we're going to go down here to September 27th, regular session. Boop. And down here, we're going to go down to the bottom, and you will see that, let me see where it is here. NCA, sorry, let me zoom in for you guys. I'm keeping that stuff too small. NCA 25-090, a law of the Muskogee Creek Nation amending Article 6, Section 2 of the Constitution of the Muskogee Creek Nation to establish term limits for National Council representatives. Let's click that and take a look at it. Hopefully we can. Here's the amendment that we would be voting on. Council representatives shall be limited to a total of 3 terms, whether served in consecutive terms of office or non-consecutive terms. A term shall not include a partial term created by an election to fill a vacancy. This law shall become effective with the filing of Seat B terms beginning in January 2026. Let's scroll down. Now, when we do these amendment votes, the National Council will, this Section 5 election, the National Council hereby requests the Principal Chief and Election Board to include the proposed constitutional amendment on the ballot for the 2025 runoff election as required by the Constitution of Muskogee Creek Nation, Article 9, Section 1, B. So I'm going to back up one, and we'll look again and see that that got adopted, right? 25-090 got adopted. Then, for some reason, Chief Hill vetoed that. Okay, now I'm going to jump ahead to the October 25th quarterly session. And again, guys, this stuff's all been also published in our council coverage that goes to our website, and it's in the paper, so you guys can also check it out there. Quarterly session, October 25th, 2025. So here we can see the NCA 25-090 had a veto, and they voted whether they were going to try to override the veto, and they voted 14-0 to not override the veto, so the veto stands. Now you'll see here this says veto message and it's blank. That's because Chief Hill hasn't ever issued a veto message explaining why he vetoed that. So we don't know. It never got issued. I haven't seen it, and we asked for it. So I'm going to scroll down here, though. And the law that ML was talking about in the chat is right here. NCA 25-0107, a law of the Muskogee Creek Nation authorizing a supplemental appropriation for the election board to conduct special election during fiscal year 2026. Okay? But you'll also see right above that is NCA 25-105, a law of the Muskogee Creek Nation amending Article 6, Section 2 of the Constitution to establish term limits for National Council representatives. So let's click through and read that. So rather, let me pop myself up real quick so I can kind of give play-by-play. So what's happened here is Thomasino Osborne proposed that amendment, the bill that we were looking at for us to vote on that amendment, and Chief vetoed it. And rather than override the veto, because it was so close to the election, it was the end of October, they just decided to reintroduce it as a new bill with a new set. And some of the language did change a little bit, so let's take a look at that while we're doing this. So here's what 25-105 reads. Council representatives shall be limited to a total of 3 terms, whether served in consecutive terms of office or non-consecutive terms. A term shall not include a partial term created by election to fill a vacancy. This law shall become effective with the filing of Seat B terms beginning in January 2026. Okay, and then let's go down to the part we talked about in the previous thing. Oh, here's some more. Section 2. Council representatives shall be limited to a total of 3 terms, whether served in consecutive terms, basically the same language. This is what you will see on your ballot. And then Section 5, as usual, election. The National Council hereby requests the principal chief to set a special election date and include the proposed constitutional amendment on the ballot within 30 days of this legislation becoming law as required by the Constitution of Muskogee Creek Nation. Okay, so now what do we not know about this? We don't know if Chief has vetoed this bill. This bill did pass. It did. Let me back up so you guys can see that. I'm going to scroll down here. Sorry. Where are we at? So many bills. Okay. So you can see here that the term limits was adopted 14-0. The law of the Muskogee Creek Nation authorizing supplemental appropriation to the election board to do the special election was adopted. And then also we have another amendment here that's going to replace the word Muskogee with the traditional spelling Muskogee, like in Muskogee media, the Muskogee word Muskogee. I don't know if that's confusing. And deleting the word Creek. And also the same thing for this next one down here. So all of those were adopted though. So barring whether Chief Hill decides to veto these, then we should see a special election being announced in the next, 30 days, I think is what, 60 days? Maybe it's 30 days they have to do that. So they should be announcing that, and we should all be going down to vote again. I don't know for sure when that election is going to happen because, like I said, we haven't confirmed whether Chief has vetoed these or not. Okay, so I hope that clears up the situation with the special appropriation for the election board. it doesn't have anything to do with going back to district voting. That issue with the language, with primary language, I haven't seen any action on that from the council or anybody, and I don't know if anybody has caught that little wrinkle yet. I have asked the election board about it, but I haven't heard anything, and it's been quite some time. But if you're watching, Nelson, feel free to send us a Facebook message or contact me, send me a text message, send me an email, and update us on when we're going to be voting for our district reps only, because we voted for that, and that's in the Constitution. So, and again, sorry, the Constitution will always supersede the code. The code is below the Constitution. Okay. So where were we? Let me check and see what's going on, if there's any results. We do not have any results yet. Okay. Let me look at my list of stuff. Oh, so here's an interesting news story that we published at the start of the week. So I'm going to give you guys a little inside baseball about what happened here. We got contacted by some citizens saying, hey, the Tlatelolco, the Golden Pony, the Tlatelolco Tribal Towns Casino is shut down. What's going on with that? We're like, I don't know. So I started going immediately onto the National Indian Gaming Commission's website to see if there was a violation or something, because there's only so many reasons a casino would get shut, The National Indian Gaming Commission could shut them down if they had some type of violation and they had to get it fixed. So in the process of searching for anything like that, I found that there was a case in Okfuskee District Court that had been filed, right? And we also sent a reporter down to Golden Pony to try to figure out what's going on. And then we had also heard that Light Horse had been down there. So we contacted the Creek Nation AG to find out what's going on. This link to this story, let me pop it up for you guys, is on our website. It's in the description of this video if you want to read it. It's very interesting. But in a nutshell, what the story is there's a leadership dispute happening at the Tlatelolco Tribal Town, okay? There's been a petition filed in the Okfuskee District Court because if you guys remember prior lawyered up coverage that we've done, there was a whole situation where Tlatelolco had sued the Creek Nation Supreme Court justices, and it was we did oral arguments on it and everything. If not, you can go back and check our coverage on lawyered up to see all of that stuff. But basically, they didn't want to come to the district court anymore. So they are going to Okfuskee District because the Tlatelolco Tribal Town does not have a court system. They've gotten a grant from the federal government to make one years ago, but they just haven't used the money to make that, or they're still in the process to make their own police and their own court. So right now they've got to go somewhere else to get things adjudicated. So that being said, while all that's happening, and there's a breakdown of what happened in this story. You guys can read it. I'm not going to get into all of that. Apparently, according to MCN AG Jerry Wisner, there was an attempted break-in at the casino early Monday morning or Sunday morning, between Sunday and Monday that morning. And that's why the casino shut down, is because there's a crime scene. I did want to point out something that was interesting. There is a comment on this story, right? So the casino is currently shut down, right? And it's a crime scene, and the BIA and I think the FBI and the Light Horse, they're all investigating this. And we have this comment that came in on our story on the website. It says, Flora Ataguale, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, says, what about the people that were inside the casino that were told to come back Monday and they would make their tickets good and still haven't received any word about when they will receive their money? They were made to cash out. So apparently, and I don't know, this is just a comment on our website, but it looks like there were some people in the casino when it got shut down, and they were told to cash out their stuff, and they got a ticket, but they didn't get their money, and they can't probably get their money until they get back into the casino to get that thing. Now that is interesting, and we'll see what happens with there. I don't know if there's a court case that could be filed about that, and because of sovereign immunity and everything, but who knows? And we'll keep an eye on that Tlatelolco leadership lawsuit and everything. There's a link to that in the story. Like if you go into the story, you can look at the docket. It's in the Okfuskee District Court. Okay, so that's the Tlatelolco stuff. Let me see if there's any questions here. The Muskogee word change is very important too. Wish that was on the last election. Yes. Tulsa Town says, Chogasatis. Yes, absolutely. This time, guys, I saved my sticker. So I got one too. Let's see. What is that? What else is on my list? Friedman update. Okay. If you guys have been following the coverage on the Friedman case, you'll know that the last lawyered up we did on it was for a renewed motion for contempt that was filed by the Friedman lawyers. So there has been I've been waiting to do another lawyered up on it to see when the Supreme Court is going to make a ruling on that order, whether they're going to make an order for contempt or they're going to deny the motion for contempt. They haven't done that yet. But the response to what's the words I'm looking for here? Hold on. Let me go to the case. I'll just go to the case and we'll read it. So here we are on the Supreme Court's website as usual. We're going to go here. This is the Grayson Kennedy case. Everything that's happened. You'll see down here at the bottom, this right here, respondents' renewed motion for contempt and for court enforcement of order and judgment is what we covered on the previous lawyered up. So if you want to check that out, you can go watch it. This is the Appellate Citizenship Board of the Muskogee Creek Nation's response to respondents' renewed motion for contempt for court enforcement of order and judgment and for order to show cause. So what this is the Citizenship Board's lawyer trying to address some of the claims in the renewed motion for contempt. It's not the Supreme Court's ruling on this or order on this, whether they're going to hold Chief in contempt and everything. I've been waiting to do a lawyered up until the Supreme Court rules on this, but as you can see, this got filed 10/14, and then the reply got filed at 10/27, so it's been a while since this motion's been made. But let's take a look at the Citizenship Board's response to that. If you guys, hold on, sorry. Boop. Let me do some adjustments here. If you guys remember in the lawyered up coverage, one of the things that I was talking about is was pointed out in the Friedman's motion was that you had a situation where Chief Hill issued an executive order, and that executive order told the Citizenship Board that they couldn't issue any citizenship cards to Friedman until there were changes made to the code to reflect the 1866 treaty, Article 2, okay? And so a problem with that is the Citizenship Board is a constitutional body that's supposed to operate independently, and in fact, previously in this case and in other cases, Chief Hill had argued that he wasn't a party to the case because he doesn't have any say over the determinations made by the Citizenship Board. So he was like, hey, I don't have anything to do with Citizenship Board. I don't have control over them. So I couldn't have told them to not give Grayson and Kennedy citizenship. That's not how it works, which is true, right? But now we have this filing that's the response to that Friedman filing in the Supreme Court. And I'm going to read you a little bit of it. Let me scroll down here and find the section where it talks about, here we go. Okay. So what we're reading right now is the Citizenship Board's response to the Friedman's motion where they said, hey, Chief isn't supposed to be issuing orders to a constitutional body. That's not right. So let's read and see what they say here. As this court previously found, the Citizenship Board, although a constitutionally formed entity, is part of the executive branch. And then this is a quote from a Supreme Court decision. The office of the principal chief has been expanded and contrasted over the years with the creation, amendment, and removal of various executive offices, departments, and commissions. As a result of this fluctuating state, the National Council passed NCA 12-174 with the stated purpose of organizing the various departments, agencies, boards, and commissions and other entities of the executive branch into a cabinet system in order to improve the effectiveness, efficiency, and accountability to the citizens of the Muskogee Creek Nation. One such board specifically designated by this legislation as being under the direction of the Office of the Principal Chief is the Citizenship Board of the Muskogee Creek Nation. In addition to statutory authority, Article 3, Section 1 of the Muskogee Creek Nation Constitution grants the Principal Chief authority to appoint all 5 members of the Citizenship Board subject to approval by the National Council. The Principal Chief has exercised this authority as recently as May 20th, 2023, appointing Leanne Nix to serve on the Citizenship Board. It is clear that the Office of the Principal Chief exercises significant constitutional and statutory oversight and control over the Citizenship Board. There's another part I wanted to read here. Is this it? No. Oh, this is it. Okay. So you see there what we just read is basically them saying, hey, the Supreme Court has already found that the executive branch has oversight over the Citizenship Board. Now, there is a legal argument here that could be made to say there is a difference between a control of a board of a department and oversight, right? Like oversight would say that chief, if the Citizenship Board is doing something that's illegal or violates law, then chief is the one who's responsible to stop them or keep them from doing that. But there is a difference there, but legally, between oversight and giving commands to. But we'll see if that comes up in court. The other thing I thought was interesting is in this response that the Citizenship Board filed, they talk about the process that any changes to code would have to go through specifically for them in order to be finalized and everything. So let's take a look at that, because I had not heard this and I haven't ever seen this, but I'm sure that it's in the code if it's being cited here. So let's look and read what it says. Further, any change to the Citizenship Board's rules and regulations are subject to the board's rulemaking authority as set forth in Title VII, which states that the rulemaking authority Citizenship Board shall have the authority to prescribe, promulgate, yada, yada, yada. But if we keep going down here, those rules are then, hold on, where is it? Sorry, this is the wrong section. Well, where is it? Did I miss it? What I'm trying to show you guys, hold on, let me dig a little bit. What I'm trying to show you is there's a section in here where they talk about any changes to the code or the rules have to be published in the Creek Nation newspaper, and there has to be a public meeting for it. Let me see if I can find that, because I thought that was the section, but I think I missed it. Hold on. One second, guys. Here it is. This is it. Oh, I found it. I was on the right thing. I just didn't see it. Hold on. If you look here at B, filing requirements for regulations, it says no rule or regulation of the Citizenship Board shall be of any force or effect until and unless a certified copy of said rule or regulation bearing the signature of the Citizenship Board shall have been published in the Muskogee Nation News, filed for record in the office of the National Council Secretary, and filed for record in the office of the Clerk of the Muskogee Nation Courts. It says up here too that said rules shall be discussed in at least one public hearing after notice and advertisement in the Muskogee Nation News prior to adoption by the Citizenship Board. Now, me personally, I haven't seen that process ever happen. We've never ran anything that said the citizenship. That doesn't mean it has never happened in the history of the tribe, but that's one of the things that we need to keep an eye on, because in this response, the Citizenship Board is saying, hey, we have to do these steps before any freedmen are going to get citizenship, right? We've got to have these public hearings. These announcements have to be in Muskogee Nation News. Any changes will have to be published and filed in the court of record, and none of that's happened yet. That's one of the interesting things I wanted to point out in that response. Okay. again, you guys, all of this stuff is on the, why can't it go backwards there? That's weird. Okay. Is on the Supreme Court's website. I'm going to go to the election board's Facebook page and see if we got any results. We do not have any results. Okay, so what do you guys want to talk about now? Or do you want to watch some of that ceremony? Or do you have a request of a video that you'd like to watch? We could do that too. It is currently 7:19. The polls have been closed for 20 minutes. I hope that I've explained all that. Let me look at my list of stuff here. Sorry, I'm going to lean over a little bit. We covered that. We did that. We talked about that. We talked about everything. Okay, I'm going to close some tabs because I've got a million tabs here. And I want to be ready for anything you guys want to talk about. But that is my list of talking subjects. I also have, let me show you guys some stuff here. I'm going to hide my Chrome and so we have the, in case you missed it, the Council Oak ceremony, if you guys want to watch that. We also have some, in case you missed it here, stomp dance footage. We have the What Is series that has they're basically short videos that explain certain things that people may not know about the history of, like the Permanent Fund or tribal sovereignty. The Johnson O'Malley program. We've got the What Is on blood quantum, the 1866 treaty, and so on. Now, for instance, some of them are a little out of date, like the 1866 treaty one was done before we had the McGirt decision, but the information about the history is still the same. Any other news about the TTT situation? Okay, so, well, here's where we are with the TT. Well, we can look. Let's go look, JR. So if we go to, oh wait, that needs to stay up. If we go to Muskogee Media, and you guys can do this too, if we go to Muskogee Media, let me pop this up. You'll see here that at the top, attempted break-in at Golden Pony. Oh, it got away from me, hold on. There we go. Attempted break-in at Golden Pony. If you want to know what's going on with the case though, let's click, here it says this comes amid court case CJ 2025-079. You click that link and it will take you to the OSCN for the case. And you can see here, this is what's been filed in this case. The petition, hold on, let me come back really quick. If you guys want me to read this petition or go through this petition too, we can do that. Just pop it into the chat. So this is the petition that was filed. This petition was filed by Miko Brown. And we went and checked and currently, well, let me go back to the story really quick, actually. So that's where the docket is. That's in that link to that. Hold on. If we go down here, you can see, according to the BIA's Tribal Leadership Directory, Town King Brown is listed as the current head of the TTT. Have you guys ever gone there and checked that out? Let's do it. So this is like a automated directory with from a map from the BIA of who the federal government considers to be in charge of different Indian tribes. We are going to zoom in to Oklahoma, right? We're going to zoom in a little bit more. Now keep in mind, this is what the BIA thinks. And, but you can find it through the map here, but you can also go over to this sidebar and search, and it will come up here, and we can click it, and it will show us where it is. And I don't know if you guys can see that. It's really small. Can I make it bigger? Yeah, I can. You can see here that Tlaloc Tribal Town, they say the town king is Brent Brown. All right. So if we go back, and it has some contact information there. If we go back to our story and we go back to our docket, we go down, we see here that this Tlaloc Tribal Town plaintiff, and then all these other guys are defendants. And if we click, let me go down here, we look at the PDF of the petition. Let me click that so we can look at it. You can see here that I'm going to go down a little bit so you can see the signatures of who filed this petition. So we know who's filing what. Oh my gosh. Hold on. Did I go past it? No. Here we go. No. Yes. So you can see here it's Brent Brown that filed this petition. The reason I point all that out is to say that the BIA thinks Brent Brown's running Tlatelolco Tribal Town, and Brent Brown is the guy who filed this petition. And if you read the story details what's in the petition, and if you guys want me to go through it and read it, we can do that right now too. Just pop it in the chat. Say, hey, read the petition. Let's go through the petition. But basically what it says is there's two other groups that are trying to take over the leadership of Tlatelolco Tribal Town, and they've been disrupting the workers at the tribal offices, and they've been getting into the federal grant accounts for the tribe, and all of this stuff is crazy. It's a crazy story. And there has also been, in this case, you can see here, this is the petition. We keep scrolling down. There's some summons issued. You can also see another thing here. It says, letter from Tlatelolco Tribal Town. Let's look at that. Now, this is a letter. Let me open both of them because it's going to be kind of hard to explain if I don't open the other one too. Dang it. Oh, dang it, Bobby. All right, hold on. Let me pop this up. So this is the petition, and this, let me go in full screen. Sorry if this is getting confusing. So this is the petition that was filed by Brent Brown, who the BIA says is the Miko, right? This is another letter that was filed in the case by this other guy, Brent Smith, who says he is the tribal town king. And this letter says, this district court of Oswego County we are not waiving our sovereign immunity to get our case heard in here. Now, I don't know how the judge is going to make a determination of who is in charge of this tribe. Is he going to do what we did? Is he going to go to the BIA and say, hey, who's in charge of this? Is he, this situation with this leadership kerfuffle, right? And that's not the only group. There's another group too that you guys may remember our coverage of Nathan Anderson. So he's also another group that's been involved in this. And I would encourage you guys, if you're a Tlatelolco or if you're interested in Golden Pony or any of that stuff, to read that story on our website. It's very interesting. But it really highlights why tribes need to have their own tribal court system and their own light horse police, because that way they can guarantee that disputes like this are heard. Tlatelolco doesn't have its own Supreme Court, which means Tlatelolco doesn't have a court that can make a determination on its own constitution. It has to go to other courts. It has to go to the state of Oklahoma. It has to go to the Creek Nation. And if it has a dispute with the way the Creek Nation law or Supreme Court justices or justices rule, it can sovereign immune out of the case, right? But it never is going to get a decision that's legally binding to handle this stuff. And that's what they really need to do. My advice to whoever's in charge down there, Brent Brown or whoever, is you guys need to set up your court toot sweet, because you're going to get, even if you get a ruling through the Okfuskee District Court, what are your options? You're going to go up to the Oklahoma Supreme Court? You're going to go to the federal level? You're going to go to the United States Supreme Court? How will it end, But anyway, that's why your government needs to have its own court system. It's very important. And the Tlatelolco, you can also go on the federal grant system and see that they regularly get Department of Justice grants. Many times these grants are for them to help stem domestic violence and things like that, ICWA and other things. It's very strange that they would have to. Oh, I'm getting a note. Let's see here. Oh, we got results. Let's go see. Dude, sorry guys, I was talking too much. All right, here we go. Let me make this full screen. These are, can I make them bigger? Hold on a second. We'll do it like this. There we go. Okay, so where are we at? Unofficial results. Nelson Scott Harjo, 49.69% to William Dean Lowe, 50.31%. So it looks like Will has won that race. Leonard Gouge with 49.53% to Lucian Tigers, 50.47%. So it looks like Lucian has won that race. So there we are, guys. Those are the results. And again, those results are on the election board's Facebook page if you guys want to check them out. And they came in pretty quick. So we're good. You guys got any questions? That went great. I'm so glad that this wasn't something where we're going to be here till midnight tonight. Let me take a look at the chat and see if there's anything in here. This is similar to what's going on to other tribal town, AQTT. I have not seen that, but I will look into that, JR. I didn't know there was also a dispute happening at the Alabama Casati. Well, with that being said, those results are in, and we're going to repost them on our Facebook page. Let me make sure there's not any other information here. Oh, I should say before I leave, these results will be unofficial until Friday, November 14th at 5 p.m. because there is a contestation period there between that. So if anybody files a challenge, we'll let you guys know as soon as we know, and we'll have coverage up on it. But if there isn't a challenge filed on November 14th at 5 p.m., these are going to be the official results, and those are going to be your new reps. So with that being said, Mado, Hadum, Chihachat, please.